All right, I'm live. Welcome in. This is the channel for in-home elderly care. If you're taking care of an aging loved one or someone that just needs it, you're trying to find out more information or just hear stories and strategies from someone who's done it before. That's me. I'm Mario. I use my grandmother, Ruth Kenton, as my case study for these videos, who I assisted by giving her elderly care in the last years of her life. And so that's kind of what I'm doing here, is just breaking down what I did and how I came across the concepts that I implemented, and what was, kind of going on when all of that happened. Yeah, I've got on my Palm Tree Island shirt today. Palm Tree Island, Wrightsville Beach, from North Carolina. Lived in Wrightsville Beach for many years, but I'm from Fuquay-Varina originally, and then Willow Spring is actually where Ruth lived. So I've got a lot of love for that area, and that's where her and my grandfather did all of their elderly care taking in their professional career. That's what they did for over 30 years. So today we're going to talk about, let me get my slides up here. Boom, boom. All right, we're going to talk about medical support for the customer. Okay, so with Ruth, what we had to do medically for her when we first started, she had a lot of her vision, or was still able to see and get around, especially in the house. Her hearing was, she was losing it, but she could still hear decently. She had hearing aids. It wasn't a whole lot, but as her condition changed, so did the level of care that was needed for her medical support. So what I want to do in this video, and some of the bullet points that I have listed, is like, how do you get your arms around all of that? Meaning what the conditions are, what you need to meet the needs of those conditions, and then how you want to actually manage that and everything. And for a large portion of her care, I was managing it at my level, and meaning like working directly with her on it. And that was pretty much the case for most of it, even up to the end. But the overall medical support enterprise, we ended up bringing in someone from the family to actually assist with that, so it wasn't all falling on my shoulders or my younger sister, her shoulders, because as her conditions worsened, like I'm saying, the level of care got more intense, and it's a lot to manage. I don't know how you can actually manage it and give someone the level of care that they need when you'd literally have to be by their side the whole time. By the end, her vision totally failed her, her hearing failed her, she had several other conditions going on, and she was bedridden essentially. So you had to be by her side, at all hours of the day in order to assist her in the way that she would have needed it, unless you start bringing other people in. So let me put up these actual bullet points, and we'll start looking at them and going through them. And actually, I'll lose when I get down to those bottom points, I'll lose the camera so that you can see everything that I've got written out. All right, some basics of medical support. Last video, we were talking about creating a routine, establishing a routine. Gonna need to do that, okay? And then with supporting things medically, because usually that's what you're going to be facing. I mean, elderly people, they're going to have some sort of condition. They're going to have something. I don't know what it is, even if it's that you're vitamin deficient and you need to be taking your vitamins, or you're might be looking at osteoporosis, or just issues that come with age, right? Arthritis, could be whatever. But you're going to want to get your arms around that, and not just the current conditions, but any current conditions that are identified and how they could actually progress. You're going to want to just be aware of all of that and start thinking not just presently, but how that's going to affect things in the future. Create a list of all medication. Okay, create a list of all the medication that the customer is currently using. And I would suggest doing it in two different ways. One is to create a physical list, or just have that list ultimately be placed somewhere in the living space physically, so you can handwrite it, right? But I would actually suggest opening up a Word document or whatever platform you use and actually listing everything out, or you could do it through an Excel spreadsheet, because ultimately you can do it in a Word document. You could do it in a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet possibly would be a better fit if you want to have one document that's not just listing the medications, but also is listing dosages and times of day and things that you're also working with your scheduling and establishing a routine. And the reason why I link those two together is that most medications that at least we deal with are all medications that you're going to want to take with food or without food. It's usually either with food or without food, and it's usually at certain points in the day, whether that's something general like morning, noon, or evening, or if it's something like specific where this is definitely 7 a.m. and this one's definitely 2 p.m. and etc. So a spreadsheet is going to give you that level of detail that you can go by. So there's that. And then the other piece that I'm saying with it is to actually print that out and have that somewhere physically located. And the reason why I say that is it could possibly be something that you're going to want to reference. But I would say, so one of the things with Ruth, and as we continue to progress as just as humans living in the present world, this might become less and less of a thing. But for Ruth, she had no technology background, inclination, experience, knowledge on at all. I might have mentioned before, the first thing that I did when I moved in with her was to call up the cable company and say, hey, we need internet service here, like ASAP. So, didn't even have internet service. She never owned a smartphone or a tablet or laptop, even a desktop. Never had an email or anything like that. We're going to address some of those points here on this list. So you're going to want to have it listed there physically, because what you're going to find is it's not just her, but the people in her world are also older. And they're probably, or a chance that they're not going to be technically savvy. And so if it's information that you want readily available and available to anybody, regardless of what their level of background is working with technology, just have it physically listed, and that could also come in handy if there is an emergency or you're on the phone with a physician or something, they want to know what's a list of her medications. You can have that physically handy there and read it off to them. Or if an emergency worker comes in, first responder comes in, and they want to know what medications she was on, because there were several times where we called in first responders to medically transport her to the hospital for various conditions, and we were able to use that. So create a list however you want to, whatever's proper. And hey, these are all evolving things, so if you create it one way, it doesn't mean that it's got to stay that way forever. You can obviously create something that's handwritten. You can obviously transcribe that over to something digital, or anything digital, you can print at any point. And the medications will be changing and evolving, so it's not going to be any kind of a fixed list. So keep that in mind. I've got to purchase device for the customer. The way that I did all this, and this is actually, I'm trying to set this information up so that it's digestible, number one, but so there's kind of like an order here to what you want to do. And I've got purchase device for the customer, and the reason why I've got that is because if you want to run all of this stuff, because this is just, we're just talking about medical today, but we're going to talk about some financial stuff. We're going to talk about infrastructure and just different accounts and things that you might have to keep up with in multiple ways. You can run all of that from a single device, meaning like your personal device, if it's your computer or your phone or your tablet. But man, that makes things complicated. It really does. Managing logins and passwords and everything, and it just makes things complicated. And if you watch any of my videos, one of my thing is eliminating complications. This process is already going to be complicated enough. And so as much that you can mitigate right out the gate, go ahead and do it. You might say, but Mario, I don't have $500 to buy a device. Fair enough. Or whatever kind of device you're looking at. I can't afford it. Hey, fair enough. But if you are able to do it, I would recommend doing it and keeping everything with the customer contained in its own device. And then that way, when you're opening up your Chrome or whatever browser you use, and it's not a drop-down menu of 6 different emails and passwords associated with those emails, and is that even the most current password? And okay, now I'm going through the forgot password portal, and I'm flipping over to my email, and now I'm getting the 2-factor authentication code, and I'm putting that back in, and Now I need to check my account. Okay, now I'm going through the same thing again because I've got to flip it back over to my account. It's a whole thing. It's worth a couple $100. Like I'm saying, if you can afford it, to just go ahead and start everything on their own device. That's what I did for Ruth, even though she never used it. I bought a laptop that was specifically for her accounts. For everything that was going to concern her, we worked it from that laptop. I use my laptop for work as well. You probably are in a similar situation. And so just eliminating that complication or potential complication right out the gate, did it, done. And then the first thing I did after that, and this is going to be obviously for everything that you're going to be doing for the customer on the computer, which is create an email. Set up an email. If they don't have an email, set up an email. Even if they do have an email, maybe you would want to create a second email, especially if that primary email is still like their personal email, and people do communicate with them and stuff on it, and maybe they don't want to give you the credentials so you can log in on it, and like it's a whole thing, and it could just be a whole thing, right? Again, complication. Let's get rid of it. Emails are free, right? With most providers. So you can just create an email for that customer and start setting up these different accounts under that email address, and then you keep it, and then you're aware of tracking any messages that come in through that, or any of the accounts that are associated with that. And that's obviously why we're saying to do that, or why I'm saying to do that, is because you literally cannot set up any kind of account online without an email. And most of the times it's email and a phone number, right? Because we're talking about that organization wanting to have the data to authenticate you. And most of the time that's done. They got to identify you with an email. And then they're most popular, they want to authenticate you with a password and then your cell phone, to send you a text for multi-factor. So they're going to need to have that email in order to be able to do that. And again, this was something with Ruth when I was setting up all of this stuff. Whose phone number do I want to put in? Because when you're trying to check something, I'm sure you've done this or been through this, or you will go through this at some point where you're trying to get into something, you can't get into it, or maybe you do, the password's right, and they say, okay, great, we just sent you a text message or an email to the other email that you've got listed so that you can go and now get back and authenticate. And then it's you can't remember what number you had listed. It's been maybe a couple of years since you logged in, right? And maybe you got a different number. Or in this case with Ruth, it was that she's got her phone. She had a house phone, okay? So just a straight up landline. That was her primary number one. Then she had her cell phone that could actually do SMS. And I believe there was a time when I first set this up, I was trying to fill it out. And I think that I did use her cell phone for that, but even that got complicated because she didn't understand the process. Well, they're gonna send me a code on your phone, and then I take that code and I put that into the internet, and then she didn't know what was going on. And I don't know if the perception was that hey, this dude's doing something on my phone. I don't know, but I know what's going on the internet, and I don't want my stuff on the internet. So I don't know how. Complication, right? Get rid of it. So if it's easier, or for me, I ultimately did take a lot of this stuff and just link it to my personal cell phone number, so I was able to authenticate or just give them that information right as they needed it. But maybe you've got another idea in mind. Maybe the customer, like I said, already has a phone and that's not a problem. Or heck, if you're going to buy a device, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I'll just get a cheap line or something to manage this from a cell phone perspective too. Cool. There's no set way to do it. And my only guidance that I continue to say is just do it in a way that's going to remove complications. So yeah, create an email for the customer specifically for doing everything that we're going to mention in this video series. Third one is or the one after that is to enroll in all medical provider portals. Okay, so Ruth had, well, number one, before I talk about what Ruth had, this is the way that all medical communication is being done now, or pretty much, heck, so many industries, not just medical, right? So you're just going to want that because you're going to have access to the information they provide on the portal. You're going to want to be able to email them or message them through the portal, or request for prescriptions to be filled through the portal. You don't want to be calling them. Like every time I tried to call one of her medical providers, they would get back to me at the end of the day. Call them, boom. What time do they open? 8 a.m. Okay, let me ring them up. Boom, 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 8 a.m. Voicemail. Okay, all right. Well, I guess Granny, they're gonna call back at some point. Boom. 4:59 sharp. Ring, ring. I'm like, I'm at work. I'm doing something else. I'm like, hey, missed the call, right? Or calling me like first thing the next day or something, but like maybe she's got a condition or something that she needs some assistance with, or needs a script or whatever it is, something filled right out the gate. Go through the portal. That's where they want you, and I'm good with that. That's where I want to be to communicate with them. So again, the medications, all of the medication bottles, by the way, will have the doctor that prescribed it to them on there. So you can talk with the customer about that. Like, hey, so who are all of your doctors? And then like what practice are they with? Because depending on, right, you can have, so like for instance, this was in the Raleigh area. She used a lot of the Wake Med medical system. So she had 3 or 4 doctors of different types that were strictly under Wake Med, like her cardiologist, her general physician, like I was mentioning that she went to the emergency room a handful of times, all of those records were kept there as well. And then maybe she had like 1 or 2 other doctors, or even when like the primary doctor would be out and they would give her an alternate or the doctor available, that doctor would then be associated with her account too, and all the notes and information would be on there as well. So it just, it makes things easier. You're going to want to do that. And then she had a couple that were out of band from the Wake Med system, like her, oh gosh, who was he? Like her eye doctor, like her ear, nose, and throat doctor, and man, she had her dermatologist. So I had to go in and make sure that I had portals created with them too. And again, appointments, making appointments, follow-ups, just everything, wanting to do through the portal. Okay, so I've already started talking about the next point. Let me just take my camera off here real quick. And I got to do it like this. I got to do it like that. Boom. Okay, so get familiar with the medical portals. Get familiar with them, right? Meaning like, hey, click around in them and see what's going on with it, and make sure that you know how to get to appointments, and make sure you know how to send messages and receive messages and everything. You don't want to be figuring stuff out in the moment, okay? And that's what I'm saying, like getting into these portals. And if you've seen them before, especially like with a big conglomerate style of portal, like if it's like, for instance, her dermatologist was just her dermatologist. Okay, it was this one practice, this one location, this maybe there were 2 or 3 physicians, but that actually worked there, but it was just one physician that was associated with her. Pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot of clicking here and clicking there and figuring stuff out. Pretty easy. But something like Wake Med, oh, bro, that's like they're writing you a novel with 25 different click points on the screen. Okay, like bunch of information. And do you want to go to the labs section? Do you want to go to the scheduling section? Do you want to go to the physician section? Do you have a question? Hey, have you been suffering symptoms of COVID-19? Click here. You're gonna want to get familiar with all of that, and just know your way around it. And not just because you want to do it, but like things will come up like. Hey, schedule an appointment. Okay, great. I'm gonna go in. I'm gonna schedule an appointment. Boop, boop, boop. Hey, I got it. You want it for Thursday at 8 a.m. Great. I was able to get you Thursday at 8 a.m. with the physician I like. Yes, Granny, with the physician you like. Okay. And then the day of the appointment comes and you go and review it, and it's like, oh, they're actually not in the Cary location. Cary's nearby town. They're not in the Cary location. They're at the Six Forks location, which is North Raleigh, right? Like, so, if you're not able to like reference that or like know that you need to not only be selecting the proper doctor or the proper specialty, the proper doctor with this proper specialty, the proper day of the week, the proper time, and the proper location. If you're not tracking for that, that's going to be an issue because you're going to go to an appointment or you're going to send her to an appointment and it's going to be at the wrong Dr. Griswold's only here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Yeah, all of his Wednesday appointments are at the other location, an hour and a half away. Oh, gosh. Okay, it's going to be a whole deal. So, yeah, get familiar with the portals. Make sure that you know how to request something or ask a question or order refills, just everything that you would want to do with the physician. Next thing with that, as we're talking about appointments, medication refills, as we're talking about things just in general with the routine from the previous video, create a calendar of events. When you go into these portals, they have a calendar in there for you. So if you go to the portal, you can see it from the portal. But create a calendar of events. The way that we did it, or the way that Ruth liked to do it, she had a yearly calendar, the big desktop form that sat on her kitchen table, where we could go in and physically write all of her appointment dates on the calendar. She would have that. So, it's something that she had from her professional days. She always bought a new calendar like that every year, for 50 years. So it was something that was already in her routine that she was familiar with, but it makes it possible. Same thing that I was just talking about with the list of medication. It makes it possible for anyone who needs to be tracking any of her appointments and dates and stuff available for them to be able to do so right there in front of them. You can also digitize that. So like I'm saying, from the actual medical portal, if you can't remember, you can go to the medical portal and it'll give you all that information. When you do list that information, if you're going to digitize it yourself, say you want to keep your own calendar that's away from the portals, you can do that. Like maybe you've got like a Google Docs and you've got other people that are helping support you in this effort, and everyone just needs to have live information about her appointments that they can just check and see if they're available to take her, or however that might play out. Boom, you can do it like that too. But remember, the items I just listed a moment ago, you're going to want to make sure that you have all of that stuff listed when you actually add it to the calendar, if it's a physical calendar with the customer, or if it's a digital calendar. The type of practice, the physician, the day of the week, the time, and the location, because it will come up. It totally will come up. And if maybe you've experienced this personally, where you've scheduled an appointment and it was at a different location or something like that. That's different locations. The biggest challenge that we had was just making sure, day and time is pretty standard, but just making sure, like, oh yeah, the location, making sure that part's right. But yeah, just have all of that information listed. And if you have others supporting you as well, put the address in. Put the address on the calendar so they can, if it's digital and they're able to like access it through a Google spreadsheet, make that sucker so they can click on it and it'll just take them straight to their, Maps app, and we'll just go ahead and load the information. Um, that's totally crucial. It's because that will come up to, do you have the address? Can you send me the address? So help. Not only are you removing complications for yourself and the customer, but you also want to assist removing complications for anyone that's assisting with the effort. The last thing that I've got here is in those portals. And see, most of the time that I was dealing with Ruth, I didn't have to necessarily do this, at least the insurance part. Make sure that that information is listed, like all of the, and what I'm really trying to say there is the billing information. Make sure all of that's listed and current, which, this is standard operating procedure for any physician that you're going to go to. I mean, it's like ID and insurance card, right? Right out the gate, first time, boom, they Xerox it or take pictures of it, or however they capture the information. But make sure that that's also being reflected on those medical portals. And I've got card there as well. So anything that's going to come out of pocket, make sure that there's a card on file for that. Or maybe they want to get billed, through the mail, and that's fine too. But again, it's just something else. You're going to have to track that mail coming in and then get them paid anyways, be it by going onto the portal and paying it with a card, or mailing them a physical check. And boy, oh boy, did Ruth like to mail some physical checks. Never has a person mailed as many physical checks as Ruth C. Kenton. So I assisted her with that as well, and like I said, remove those complications when you can. So yeah, just make sure that information is up to date, because the last thing that you want, especially as it concerns her medical needs, is to have overdue bills, or just heck, everyone's in different financial positions. Even if the bill is overdue, it's not. You want to be tracking it. You want to be aware that it's overdue. Yeah, that's the worst, right? Is like, not only do you have an overdue bill, but you didn't even know it was overdue until you go to the doctor and they say, "Hey, what about this $1,500 we've been trying to get from you for the last 90 days?" That's not where you want to be. So, yeah. This is we're really, again, I keep saying this with all these different slides, it's just going to take a while to go through everything. We're just scratching the surface here. There's mad other stuff that I could talk about and will be talking about, but I want to keep these videos at somewhat of a reasonable length and make them digestible for those that might click on them. So the last thing that I'll do, and bada boom, bringing up my question slide here. Hit me up if you got questions about doing in-home elderly care. I'd love to answer them. Give me your name and where you're emailing me from. All right, that will be it, and I will see you next time. Take care.